Nope, nothing has changed, and no, it hasn't been that long. You're just crazy. Welcome back to MNS. I'm, of course, Will, in case you've forgotten. You probably have. Sorry. I'm just going to say this, and then we're going to get into it. The Pac-12 is dead, and there's nothing we can do about it. Now, with that piece of knowledge, we were one TV deal away from, I think, a golden age for the Pac-12. In my opinion, the Pac-12 is the premier conference in college football this year. I know that sounds insane, but if you've been paying attention, you probably know exactly what I'm getting at. This isn't even because the SEC is having a down year or anything to do with the Big Ten. There is a lot of high-level competition at the top of the Pac-12, and this was known going into the year. This was known with Oregon, USC, Washington, Oregon State, UCLA, Utah, Colorado. We'll get to Colorado. So, everyone going into this season kind of was like, oh, the Pac-12 going out with a bang, and yeah, that is true. Like, this is the last gasp of the Pac-12 with so many of their teams leaving for the Big Ten and a couple for the Big 12. But I think people are kind of missing the fact that, what could have been. So let's talk about it. So I said the Pac-12 was one TV deal away from entering into a golden age. So first off, with these teams that are competing at the top, I feel like what they're doing is sustainable. Like, I don't see a reason that USC, Oregon, Washington, Utah, Oregon State, UCLA, I don't see any reason that those teams would just get worse. They're going to have down years, but I think, everything within those organizations, for the most part, is built to succeed, at least relatively speaking, compared to where a couple of them were. And now we're also seeing USC finally get back into the upper echelon of the sport. Oregon is truly entering that level. And I think a team like UCLA is well on their way to doing that. Same with Washington. Washington's re-entering the fray. As I said, these are a lot of teams that I've already mentioned, but I think people need to understand that it isn't just going into this year, all of these teams are going to be good. These are all teams with pretty positive forecasts, for the next while. So why did this all fall apart? It's simple. Pac-12 could not secure a competitive TV rights deal. All the teams that are leaving for the Big Ten and the Big 12, but more so the Big Ten, are doing so because the fact of the matter is their TV deal that they just inked is the most lucrative in the sport, even more so than the SEC's actually. And the member institutions of those conferences get a sizable cut of that money. We're looking at a pretty drastic difference between the Big Ten and even what the Pac-12 could have secured, and that is because they kind of sat on their hands and waited too long to go out and secure a relatively competitive one, whereas the Big 12, on the other hand, under new management, decided, hey, we are going to jump sort of the pecking order and secure our new TV deal. Because the thought was, especially with Oklahoma and Texas leaving for the SEC, that really it was probably the Big 12 that might have been in that fourth spot, because the ACC is actually the worst of the TV deals. But we're not even talking about the ACC right now. Their inevitable implosion, that's down the line. We're waiting on that one. The Big 12 jumping into that third spot and jumping in front of the Pac-12 and taking that next best TV deal left them completely on an island with no real options. The only one really that you could have even looked at, they would have probably had to turn to streaming. And are you really going to go out of your way to pay to see Pac-12 football? Not, at least not in the state that it's been the past 10 years. You probably won't. But this current Pac-12 football, you're still not going to go out of your way and pay for it, because there's not even proof that people will go out and do that for the premier conferences. And it's funny that I mentioned Texas, and I think people who are in the know from around that time, and Pac-12 Pate enthusiasts like me, who were paying attention to late kick in the offseason, know the story of what happened in 2010 and 2011. If you don't know, the then Pac-10 was going to become the Pac-16. They were going to take 6 teams from the Big 12, including Texas, Texas Tech, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and funny enough, Colorado. They were going to take those teams from the Big 12, add them to what would then become the Pac-16, become the first super conference, build their own network, which is actually kind of the stem of a lot of these network problems, is they were hell-bent on creating their own network for a good while. But at the 11th hour, Texas pulled out because they were offered the Longhorn Network by ESPN. $300 million will kind of change your opinion on things. And, of course, the Pac-10 at the time was like, no, this can't happen. So Texas pulls out of the deal. The entire thing falls apart. And you know the story from that point. Eventually, A&M and Missouri leave for the SEC. Texas and Oklahoma eventually leave and go to the SEC anyway. And now we're here. So I guess you could say Texas killed the Pac-12 and almost killed the Big 12. Interesting. Maybe it'd be irresponsible to say that, but hey, it's a fun narrative, and it'll piss off Texas fans, so that's cool. No, I don't want to piss off Texas fans. I hope Texas is back. It's good for the sport. I just think if they could have just secured a competitive TV deal, that we would not be in the situation we are right now, and the Pac-12 was just that close to another golden age. But instead, USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington are all headed to the Big Ten. And now the final domino, and why I had to make this video. Colorado is leaving too. Oh, what could have been. What could have been for this conference, with now Colorado being turned on its head from being just one of the most lifeless programs in the country with no value, no hope, to one of the most valuable commodities in sports. Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, he'll do that for you. And he did. And as a cherry on top, they're ahead of schedule. What I'm saying right now about Colorado would be true if they started off 0-3. They're 3-0. They're going into conference play this week against Oregon. Cards on the table. Yeah, I think Oregon's going to probably splatter them. I think this is going to finally be the game where that happens. And then there's going to be stupid narratives about Colorado. You know how it goes. The recalibration of expectations. I'm Pate State material. Josh Pate said so. He said so on Twitter. I have the proof. So that's just another thing that was right there. So not only did they have the USCs, the UCLAs, the Oregons, the Washingtons, the Utahs that were already there, ready to compete at the top. Oregon State as well. I can't leave out the Beavers. You can't leave them out. But they were going to have Coach Prime in Colorado. It could have at least. But it's just been a decade or so of unfortunate events and business mistakes. And now the Pac-12 is dead. Its last gasp is probably going to be its most entertaining, at least in a long time, because the Pac-12 is the conference to watch this year in the sport. I mean that. But it's over after this year. Oh, it's bitter. And look, I hate realignment. I hate playoff expansion. So, of course, I'm not happy about this. But, I mean, even the people that look at realignment and think oh, this is so cool. They look at ripping out the regionality of college football. The thing that makes college football fun. They look at ripping that out and they say, oh, that's awesome. How can you not at least just look at what's going on in the Pac-12 and say, damn, that close. That close. There's a lot of people to blame. I'm not going to name names because I think that's unfair, because I wasn't in the room for all of these perceived mistakes. I don't know what one thing led to another, but there are lots of people to blame, even though I'm not telling you which ones, and it just sucks. That being said, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, and if you'd like to see more videos just like this one, please subscribe. I know it's been a while, but I'm back. And hey, if you have any thoughts, please sound off in the comments about anything. Give me engagement. Give me engagement. Give me engagement. I'm Will from M&S, finally signing off.